Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Mrs. Ruth. We're continuing on with Ungifted by Gordon Korman. We are picking up on page 184. The title of this chapter is called Unreal. It's written by Katie Patterson, Donovan's sister, with an IQ of 107. Well, it was official, confirmed by the vet. Beatrice wasn't dying. She wasn't even some evil demon dog dumped into the world for the purpose of ruining my life. She had a reason for her nasty behavior. The Chow Chow was as pregnant as I was. I never thought I'd say this, but she had my sympathy. And that was pretty pregnant. Dr. Orsini said Beatrice might even whelp before I did. That came out wrong. Beatrice was the one who would be whelping. I would be giving birth. And while I knew exactly who the father was, the jury was still out on Beatrice. Odds were, we were about to welcome a litter of serious mongrels. And if you've ever seen a Chow Chow, you'll know they don't mix well with any other breed. So the Westminster Kennel Club was out. I still hadn't worked up the nerve to tell Brad, even though the whole fiasco was his mother's fault, not mine. To be honest, I didn't like to distract him with the kind of problems that would seem silly to someone fighting a war. Plus, he'd been emailing me about how relaxed and happy I seemed lately, and I didn't want to spoil it by dumping this big matzo ball in his lap. Here's my email. From First Lieutenant H. Bradley Patterson, United States Marine Corps. Honey, you're the best. I know this has been a stressful time with me away and the baby coming. What's your secret? My secret. Reality check. I felt like I'd swallowed an anvil and it was lodged behind my belly button. I'd gained 32 pounds. A stiff wind was enough to knock me off balance. I had to sit so far back from the dinner table, I needed a telescope to see my food. My legs were covered with varicose veins. My back ached. My skin had broken out thanks to my raging hormones. I couldn't allow myself to be more than 60 feet from a bathroom. Yeah, I felt wonderful. Was it the news that the dog wasn't dying? Ha! Just because Beatrice was okay didn't mean she wasn't driving me nuts. For the past month, she'd had no appetite at all. Now she was eating us out of house and home. She had no bladder control, so the carpet was a minefield. She was antisocial to everyone except Donovan, and her new hobby was disappearing. The last time she vanished, it took an hour to find her, curled up inside a bale of pink insulation in the furnace room, and even longer to pick the fiberglass fragments out of her coat. I'd moved back in with my parents and kid brother, a world away from my husband who was fighting in the war zone. My life stunk, no doubt about it. But Brad was right. He had read between the lines of my emails. I was relaxed, even happy, positively serene. Why? It had to be human growth and development. For some reason, it was like therapy. Only instead of telling my innermost secrets to some high-priced shrink, I was spilling my guts to Donnie's Geek Patrol for free. Trust me, I could have killed my brother when he blackmailed me into serving as their class pet like a lizard in a glass terrarium. It would have been uncomfortable enough in front of normal kids. But to be stared at by these geniuses with their Coke bottle glasses and analytical frowns, it was like being dissected and having your vital organs spread out on slides. At first, I had to pretend I was floating above my body and that was somebody else down there being studied. But then there was this one morning when I got out of bed and stepped right into one of Beatrice's puddles. By the time I got that sopped up, my spine felt like the disc spaces were filled with lava, but my mother only wanted to talk about the wonky pilot light in the furnace. So I wrote an email to Brad that was so full of whining and complaining, you could have set it to music. Then I deleted it without sending it. Reality check. The poor man was risking his life every day. He didn't need to hear my problems. That was when I glanced at my watch and realized that I was counting the minutes until I could go to the academy and lay out my complaints to the only people who seemed to be interested. Chloe, Abigail, Latrell, JC, Kevin, even Noah, they'd understand because they understood everything. They knew more about me than my husband. They knew more about my pregnancy than my doctor, and they were a lot easier to reach than either of them. When friends took me out to dinner and I was unsure whether or not it was safe to eat oysters, I texted Chloe. I had the answer I needed, cooked okay, raw never, within 30 seconds. When I noticed an odd chemical on the ingredient list of my shampoo, I emailed Abigail, who was able to tell me it was just a harmless preservative. When I became alarmed by a strange rash on my belly, I had the perfect resource to turn to. I watched Noah's YouTube video, Stomach of Champions, which proved that the skin had been like that for weeks. Had I survived without those guys? How had I survived without those guys? Until human growth and development, I hadn't realized how alone I was, even among my own family. Going to those medical appointments was like walking the Tour de France route, up steep hills and over broken roads, all by myself. But when I saw the minibus parked outside the clinic, my spirit soared because I knew I had a team with me, even if it was a robotics team. One day, the bus broke down on the way to the office. Dr. Manola wouldn't start the appointment until the kids had arrived. He forwarded Oz listserv emails from the American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. This class wasn't just going to pass human growth and development. They were going to be qualified to teach it. All except Donnie. If there was one of them who didn't have a clue, it was my lunkhead brother. What was he doing with these brilliant, motivated students? That was the biggest reality check of them all. Was it that as his sister, I couldn't see how gifted he really was? Or did he just not care about this course because he'd already had the credit? We were replaying the results of my fetal echocardiogram, watching the image of my baby's tiny heart beating on the smartboard. It was entrancing. Chloe was almost in tears at the beauty of it. Abigail scribbled pages of notes, all without looking away from the screen. Noah had the flip cam trained on the monitor, so I knew this would be on YouTube in Kandahar before I got home that day to warn Brad that it was coming. The whole class, including the teacher, was fascinated. All but Donnie. He was bored out of his mind, struggling to keep his butt in the chair. And he lost the struggle, jumping up and mumbling, "Going to the bathroom." He practically galloped out of the room. A few minutes later, a couple of visitors walked into the lab, and Oz paused the video. I knew one was the principal, Mr. Del Rio. The other looked like a congressman or some other kind of big shot, an older guy in a very snazzy suit. He walked right up to me, smiled warmly, and held out his hand. "I'm Dr. Schultz, superintendent of the Hardcastle Schools. I came specifically to meet you, Mrs. Patterson, and thank you for what you're doing for this class." Well, I'm going to pick up where we left off next time, guys. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you're doing great. Bye-bye.